Welcome to this edition of Mayor's Report Pleasanton. I'm your host, Dr. Marshall Kamina. Joining me today is Councilmember Julie Testa from the City of Pleasanton. I'm so glad to see you.
Well, thanks for having me, Marshall.
And you always have wonderful topics, and I would like to defer to you.
Oh, okay. So are we going to go with I wanted to share that we had a really wonderful event recently. We had a water open house. It's the first time we've done that. It was at the Vets Memorial Building, and it was last Saturday. And it was an opportunity to all of our water processes and programs were highlighted in stations around both outside of the Memorial Building and throughout. And I learned a lot as a council member, but we invited the community to come out and look and understand what we are challenged with, because most people understand Pleasanton is dealing with some significant water challenges, PFAS contamination that forced us to shut down our wells, and then on top of that we have some pretty significant infrastructure issues that we need to address, that we had a lot of discussion about at our last city council meeting. So at the Water Open House, we featured more than 10 informational booths and interactive exhibits. And honestly, I learned a lot. You know, so often I have a staff report that talks about pipes and turnouts, and I don't have an engineering background, so I work very hard to understand, to be able to make good decisions on behalf of our residents. And this was really wonderful for me also, because they brought out models of a lot of our turnouts and our pumps, and it was very informative to me. We had over 200 residents attended. That was good. We would always like to have more. And seeing our residents engage and eager to participate and learn about what we are talking about when we explain what our future infrastructure needs are. And when we will be having more discussions about everybody's favorite topic, water rates. And it's important for us and our residents to understand what goes into that. So there was a steady flow of residents of all ages and backgrounds actively discussing with our staff. I loved it because a couple of residents came up to me and said, "Oh, I just spoke with that staff person. Todd really made it, helped me understand." And there was a lot of support for how important it was to be able to actually hands-on see the pipes that are feeding our homes. It surprised me because the pipes were not what I expected to see in our residential neighborhoods, because I also sit on DSRSD and our sewer and LAVMA for our sewer management, and I'm there seeing these giant pipes. And so to see what really is underground in our neighborhoods was enlightening to even myself. And so to hear from our residents how much they got from that experience. So it says, for residents who weren't able to attend, information shared at the Water Open House is available on our website at pleasantonwater.com.
You mentioned a few moments ago this water problem has been a long time coming. Apparently it wasn't noticed. Is that because people weren't paying attention, or was it too complex? What was up there?
No, I don't think any of that, quite frankly. I think past councils and past staff have been not given the respect they deserve, because I think that there was an awareness and an effort, but I think what really wasn't as publicly understood was that actually the financial pressures that we are feeling and recognizing now it's that has been a long time coming. So in order to meet the needs and obligations of our budget, there was more deferred maintenance than we would have liked. But in fairness, it wasn't that there wasn't an understanding, it just wasn't as, but you know, I do remember, I've been a gadfly at council meetings for 30 years. I do know that there have been, not as big of discussions, but there have been discussions along the way. There was an understanding. In fact, at our most recent city council meeting just Tuesday, one of our past council members was at the podium and spoke, and she acknowledged that when she was there on the council, the discussions of the financial crisis that was looming was known. And so it's been more recently that we've been trying to address those obligations. And, you know, I've written letters, and for me, I'm very clear what my belief is, that our financial crisis isn't about parks or projects, or there's one major factor, and that is our pension obligations. And we've known for 20, almost 30 years that was coming, and it's huge. And, you know, there's always been a discomfort in discussing it. And now we discussed it pretty significantly at our most recent council meeting. And I think that that's a discussion that needs to be had more than anything. I think that there has been a misdirection, you know, kind of like squirrel, look over there, by some politically motivated people. So.
Well, it sounds like you have your work cut out for it, but there's more of an awareness of it, and that's what it takes to begin with.
Absolutely, and yet I'm not sure that we're still really, I think that there is a lot of blame still being placed that is inappropriate blame. I think that we really need a clear understanding that the factors that have gotten us, the big factor that's gotten us to where we're at, came more than 25 years ago with a pension structure.
Yeah, you were barely out of high school.
Where we're at. I was just a baby then. I was in the room that night. Yeah, I was in the room that night, so I will say, you know, we were told, the community and the council really were told that the pension structures would not cost the city one dime. That was the quote.
And you were not the only one.
And here we are. They're right, it hasn't been one dime. It's been millions, hundreds of millions. So.
Well, let's go on to a happier thing.
Okay.
Your council at a recent meeting voted unanimously to move forward on annexing property on the east side. And I'm going to use some new terms. Please unpack what took place.
All right. Well, you know, and we didn't vote on it. It was more of a give direction.
Yes.
And it was unanimous, even though there was still a lot of qualification, certainly from my perspective, a lot of discomfort, because I'm very disappointed, actually, in a shift of direction in this area. When we discussed this last in October, before the most recent election, we were looking at that site very differently than it was most recently. And where I do support the annexation of that property, because I think we and our citizens deserve to have Pleasanton making the decisions, because under the county, it was getting kind of ugly. It was quite ugly. And the county just doesn't have the concern that our council and staff have about how an area like this will impact the rest of our community. In October, we had, I thought, a very nice plan that would be an age-restricted community. And it was going to be under 400 units. It fit nicely with our existing neighborhood that is an age-restricted community. But the biggest thing about an age-restricted community is it brings with it significantly less traffic. Significantly less traffic. The traffic, and one of the things when we had this discussion and we were looking at the traffic impacts, it was already saying the traffic impacts were going to be significant, but what nobody was saying was that all 24 traffic models were based on age restricted. Less than half, what then turning it into a non-age restricted project brings with it, and then adding another several hundred units on top of it. It was not a true picture of what we were looking at, and that remains a concern to me. But it's not just that, it's also the demands of non-age restricted communities are so different and significant on our overall infrastructure and city services. And so I think we still have a lot of discussion, while I think we were all in agreement that it should be Pleasanton making the decisions, because with it, the county, the proposal, Marshall, because they wouldn't have been hooked up to our city sewer and water, what they were talking about having their own sewer plant where they would, filter the water and then spray it in fields around the area. And, it made everyone uncomfortable.
It was very unique.
It was not a good, it wouldn't have been in the best interest of our existing community or our future residents there. So,
well, with that, let me say, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back on this edition of Mayor's Report Pleasanton in just a moment. Welcome back to this edition of Mayor's Report Pleasanton. We are here talking with Councilmember Julie Testa from the City of Pleasanton. And the budget process has been on my mind and on your mind, I'm absolutely sure. There have been several meetings lately, and a town hall meeting on the next meeting for the next 2-year budget. Could you give us a summary of the progress and when the next meeting might be scheduled and so on?
Oh, yes. Well, the budget process is absolutely the most important aspect of what we do. We have to keep the lights on. And since there have been such significant awareness about the structural deficit that we are facing, the City of Pleasanton is in the process of preparing our next 2-year budget, working toward a balanced financial plan that reflects our community's priorities.
For the benefit of our viewership, what is a structural deficit?
A structural deficit is a longer-term deficit, and we recognize that this is going to be over the course of more than a decade.
But a significant one.
I'm sorry?
Absolutely significant one.
Right. Yeah. So as part of the city's 2-year budget development process, we're focusing on our long-term fiscal sustainability. As we work toward this goal, the city has prepared a financial forecast to assess future financial conditions. And this is what I think is really important. An independent financial assessment has validated our forecasting methodology and confirmed Pleasanton has a structural budget deficit that must be addressed. And the reason that that was important is that during our past campaign, there was a lot of information that was put out, and there was a lot of doubt and criticism of our staff. And there was our current mayor asked to have an independent financial assessment.
Yep.
I was the only person on the council that didn't support the more than $30,000 on having that financial assessment, because I felt that it shouldn't have been necessary just to validate what our staff had already told us. But in fact, 4 out of the 5 of us endorsed, supported, voted to do that additional assessment. And having that assessment, I acknowledge it's a good tool to have, because it should put to rest so much of the false criticism and accusations and questions about whether we really had a structural deficit.
How far along are they on that?
It's been completed.
No.
We actually do have the results, and the results, it was an 18-page assessment done over a course of only a few weeks, because we needed it quickly, for over $30,000. And what it says is that it validates our staff. It vindicates, I like to say, our staff, in that it says that they used the right consultants to arrive at the critical information about our future sales tax and property tax forecasts. It said that they were using all of the best practices to put our financial forecast in place. And so I still don't think we should have had to spend money when we're trying to save money, but it is a really important tool that completely independent, and it called out a few minor things that, hey, consider doing this and consider doing that. But there's no question, the overall, and we actually had a full meeting where those consultants were in the house and answering our questions. And one of the most significant things that even after their report came in, there was still community doubt about whether we should start using our 115 fund that is reserved for our pension payments in the future. And some of our community was still saying, yeah, we should see that it says we need to do that now. And in fact, at our most recent meeting, it was very clearly said that no, the independent report, he was there and he said, no, ideally you don't touch that until you're 100% funded in that pension fund, and that won't happen at best for 20 years. So that became another issue at our most recent budget discussion. But so we did have a recent town hall where we have our community advisory committee who is weighing in, and that's another independent look at what we're doing. And I think that moving forward, city staff will continue to refine the budget proposal based on community feedback, meaning they're going to direct us in our residents' best interest, but in the best interest of the sustainability and health for our community. And additional information can be found at the city's website, and it is updated regularly. So
thank you for that. Are there any other events or items that you'd like to update us about?
Well, on that, dovetailing on that, I can't help. At our most recent city council meeting, under matters initiated, I asked for support from our city council to, in light of the concerns in the community, as we're telling the community, because the tax measure did not pass, we are going to have to make some really difficult cuts. And we're getting a slew of emails from people saying, please don't cut what's important to me. But the reality is there will be cuts that are important to everyone, and we don't have a choice. So just in a small effort, my request to my city council was for support to discuss canceling the upcoming Mayor's Award that is scheduled for April, where we have traditionally done a lovely event announcing a Mayor's Award and recognizing our community volunteers for councils and commissions. But I think it's a bad time to continue that when we are looking at reductions in library hours and swimming pool and other things. So we haven't voted on that yet, but there were 3 of the 5 of us that said, yes, we should have that discussion, and that'll happen at our next city council meeting.
Been a tough time lately.
It is tough times. I would, if we have a few more minutes, I have a couple of other upcoming events.
I have 60 seconds.
Well, then we'll just leave it at that.
No, I want you to dig into them because they're always interesting from you.
Okay, well, let's see. So the Pleasanton Recreation Department is hiring for part-time staff for our summer programs. And again, those are not full-time staff. It's just so that we can continue to have our drama camp, lifeguards, environmental education staff, preschool camp staff, sports staff, summer camps. And you can get more information on our city website. We're going to try and keep as many programs in place for as long as we can.
Pleasanton has really a wonderful commitment to recreation. And some of the city council members have come up through that path with some of their experience.
Some of the city council members through different commissions.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being with us here today.
Well, thank you.
And thank you for watching this edition of Mayor's Report Pleasanton. Join us for the next episode of Mayor's Report right here on Tri-Valley TV. I'm Dr. Marshall Kamina. Thank you so much for joining us.